Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1. Time to catch up with the Commissioner of the National Independent Soccer Association, known as NISA to you and me. It is time to catch up with John Prutch and find out about the Independent Cup and everything else NISA. Commissioner, thanks for hanging out with us for a 1v1.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
All right, so when it comes to the first weekend of the Independent Cup, I guess let's kind of work our way to the present before we work our way all the way back to the beginning of all of this. What were some of your takeaways from that first weekend of competition?
I was pleased. I thought a couple of the amateur clubs stepped up and looked pretty good out there. Of course, Chattanooga always looks good, right? So I was pleased with the results.
When it came to putting this together, I know a lot of folks sat there and they saw that that NISA was doing this. What was the coordination like, and I guess what was it like to piece something like this together with your member clubs and clubs who wanted to sit there and go, yep, we're in too? How much toil and trouble and elbow grease went into doing something like this?
It was a lot more difficult than I thought initially it would be. We had 4 of our staff people working on it almost full time to pull it together. Because it was more than just selecting the right amateur clubs. There were a number of amateur clubs that wanted to play in it, and so we had to be pretty picky about who we chose based on region and level of competition. But the other complicating factor was the return-to-play protocol and the testing that we require as a professional league, and making sure that the amateur clubs adhered to that protocol as well. So it was quite an effort, and that's to the hat to the NISA staff for pulling this off.
How big a book is this? How much paper was used from the Xerox machines? How big a PDF document was this when it was finally done?
It was pretty thick, actually. And our return to play protocol, it by itself is a book. So it is. And then, coordinating not only, obviously, with the amateur clubs, but with U.S. Soccer, with referees, with venues, understanding the jurisdictions at the local levels, what you can and can't do. It was a fairly complex project.
When it comes to running a league in this environment, how much of a challenge has it been? I mean, pulling the Independent Cup aside, when you're looking at teams and members and trying to run a league, just in the general sense, how difficult has it been to run the National Independent Soccer Association and all this?
Yeah, it has been difficult. I would say that, it came upon us pretty quickly. Obviously, there was no visibility that this was going to happen as quickly as it did with the virus. And so the combination of understanding what was happening, shutting down, understanding that we would not be able to play before fans, and coordinating with the other professional league council members of U.S. Soccer on the return to play protocol, and it's been a challenging time. But I would tell you that our teams, our clubs, more challenging for them. This is a true testament to their love of the game. It is, it costs them dearly, right? So at our level, and our clubs rely heavily on gate receipts and sponsorships, etc. And without any of that, and the ability for them to hang in there and say we're going to continue this process, I really owe them a deep sense of gratitude.
If there was one overarching lesson that you would share with, I guess, anyone in the soccer community, and then I guess B, anyone in the business community about what you have learned about how to operate as a league, as a business, what do you think that one lesson, what would be the first lesson that you would give if you were to give a 101 class in dealing in this new normal?
One lesson?
Or I guess what would your first lesson be in the lesson plan? Let's put it that way.
I would say that you better love doing what you're doing, because it is a lot of hard work. I think, and the other lesson I would tell people is that make sure your staff is competent and that they are flexible and are willing to work endless hours to make something like this not only the independent cup, but just getting through this process.
What has the conversation base been like with the members of NISA going through all of this? I mean, how regular is the conversation about, hey, how are you guys doing as not just as a franchise but as human beings? How regular is the talking among all of you?
We've been chatting as a group every week. I would tell you that our task force, our return to play task force, initially was meeting 3 times a week. Or by meeting, I mean over the phone. And then as all the clubs, and part of the task force were members of the club, but as a group, we've been chatting every week, making decisions about moving forward, and that continues every week.
Is the Independent Cup also a way, perhaps, just to kind of put things in a folder on your desk somewhere to sit there, because you're looking at all of the clubs that are interested in playing in the Independent Cup, but does this also give you some windows into territories and teams that might want to be a part of NISA long term? I mean, is this almost like a part of a scouting mission too, perhaps?
It really is. We originally came up with this idea. It was part of our 3-year plan, and then when the pandemic hit us, we decided, okay, this is the time. Let's do this. And we've had a number of amateur clubs and markets reach out to us over the past year. This is a way to look at markets. This is a way to look at clubs and see if they're ready to make that next step. And the other thing that is interesting is just the momentum and the interest from clubs around the country in this tournament, because it's the first of its kind, where it's only for the independent clubs, it's not for franchises. And so whether it's an amateur or professional club, they have the ability to compete for a cup. And that's garnered a lot of attention. And since we rolled it out, the attention has gotten greater, right, from the clubs around the country.
And this weekend specifically, I mean, you mentioned the footprints and the scouting missions. You have Soda City, Georgia Revs, which is outside the city of Atlanta, to add to one of the current NISA members in Atlanta SC. You have Louisiana Crew and GAFA, who would be a part of the Southeast as well. Savannah Clover is also part of the Southeastern footprint, in Chattanooga FC. Those 3 matches this weekend, and I think that what you're looking at least with those 6 sides, 5 of them have, they want to go places as a franchise. One of them that has been established over a decade in the soccer landscape. And I think that you have the southeastern United States, I think, here is showing over the last handful of years that it is a growth market, and you have all of this interest in the Independent Cup from this growth market, obviously a huge positive for you.
Yeah, that's correct. And if you look at the map and what we did this year, we decided not to do anything out west because of the state of California. And we have 4 clubs out there, but we didn't feel it was realistic to try and compete out there in this pandemic with what they're going through. So we focused on the rest of the country, and the Southeast was the first one to come together. It was amazing as we started talking to clubs. It was easy to pick the 3 clubs to match up with Chattanooga. And then we started to fill in, and then in the Great Plains, then the Midwest. The Midwest is a lot of interest, but we, as you know, we don't have any professional clubs in the Midwest. It's 2 in the Great Lakes area. And then the East Coast, we have there's a lot of interest in NISA on the East Coast. And so we picked a couple of those clubs and decided to see what they're made of.
When you're seeing what they're made of here in the Independent Cup dynamic, I know obviously if you want them to be a part of NISA long term, there's the whole vetting aspect of all of this, because you don't want a situation like you've seen in other leagues, other professional leagues, where you have the one and done, or it's a fly-by-night and they skip out, they're not playing, they're not doing the right things, they're not paying their bills, not doing what they need to do to function. What's the vetting process like for NISA when it comes to bringing in new members into the league outside of the Independent Cup scenario?
Sure. So the Independent Cup gives you a little bit of a flavor of what they can do on the pitch. But it's really behind the scenes and the business operations that will help determine their long-term success. And we have an expansion committee on our board. Our expansion members inside the staff at NISA work with the expansion committee on those clubs. And it's a fairly intensive interviewing process that these clubs have to go through. Like all clubs, like all leagues, you know, when NISA first came out of the gate, we stumbled a little bit, a couple clubs, but that happens. And so the idea is that you just have to improve the quality constantly. And so what we look for as a league is they can play right on the pitch, but can they perform the business side of it? And we have some great examples in our league of clubs that have really been very successful in the business side, you know, Chattanooga and Detroit City Big Two.
When you have 3 matches on a weekend, how many screens do you have fired up in your office so you can keep an eye on things from a I mean, because you're looking at, and I know that we've talked about scouting, because as an example, this weekend you're going to have 2 matches going on at the same time. You're going to have 3 matches on a day. And I think, but also looking at these games through the watching of them live, I think can give you a footprint, at least from the TV production aspect, at least in a limited sense, as to what you can also see. I mean, how many devices do you have fired up so you can keep an eye, and what's your note taking like on a weekend?
It's pretty comical, actually. There's, you know, I'll have 2 TVs going, computers hooked up to the TVs, flat screens, and then this weekend as well, when there's the 3rd game, I'll have another laptop going. And you're right, it's very entertaining. I love watching the games. I miss being there personally, but I love watching them on TV, and it is great to take notes. And we do a good job, I think, from a marketing perspective, of also getting some of those significant moments out online so that people can see them if they have to miss the game.
John Prutch, Commissioner of NISA, hanging out with us for another couple of minutes on a Soccer Down Here 1v1. When this is a crystal ball question for you, and I know that we're also dealing with the new normal, so the answer might be a little offset, or it might have a couple of different variants into it. But when the Independent Cup is over, what would your takeaways like to be as the commissioner of the league, whether it's play on the pitch, how things are in the markets, the clubs that came in that wanted to be a part of the party in the first place? You know, what markers do you have for what you'd like to hopefully have accomplished from the Independent Cup?
So from this inaugural Independent Cup, I'm hoping that 2 of the clubs can make the jump within the next year to the professional ranks. I'd also am hoping that we start setting the table for next summer for the 2nd one. And I think we will have more of a national footprint next year. Still regional play, but national footprint, and hopefully we'll be in a situation where we can also play for a national championship. And whereas this year we're only doing regional because of the pandemic. So those would be the 2 big takeaways. And I don't think we're going to have any problems next year filling out if you will, maybe even 32 teams for the Independent Cup for the activity.
And then when you look at the new normal, obviously you have to be nimble financially and in your ideas at the same time. When you look at the to-do list that's either on your laptop in front of you, on the whiteboard in your office, or on the magnet board that's on your fridge, what are those first couple of things on the to-do list going forward in this new normal that you'd like to accomplish outside of what we just talked about?
Sure. Well, first of all, we have a fall season, and we're having to be fairly flexible in that because of the resurgence of this pandemic and how it's affecting various parts of the country. And so we're in the midst of evaluating exactly what we're doing this fall, and we'll be making some announcements in the next week or so on the final schedule. So that's challenge number one, and we're still anticipating everything behind closed doors this fall. We're hoping that in the spring that we have some vaccination or something where we can get this thing under control so that we can play in front of fans again. I would also tell you that it's pretty high on our list is some affiliations with the amateur league. And I think you're going to start seeing that in the near future as well from us, where we have a foundation of independent amateur league clubs that can be part of the NISA system.
Well, Commissioner, thanks for hanging out with us for a 1v1. Thanks for letting us know how your head is on a swivel on weekends, because with the three matches coming up this weekend, it's Soda City FC, Georgia Revolution, Louisiana Crew, and GAFA FC, Chattanooga FC, one of the flag bearers for the National Independent Soccer Association, going up against Savannah Clovers. Your head will be on a swivel, and NISA fans will be on they'll really be going from device to device, and it is NISAofficial.com, and then all of the other social media platforms that are a part of the National Independent Soccer Association. Mr. Commissioner, thanks for hanging out with us for a 1v1. We'll be keeping an eye on things, and we will catch up with you soon.
Thank you.